Hey, it's Drybear. Another day, another set of Q&A questions. This Q&A session is going on super long, and I think a lot of people are wondering what's the future like. There are people that are starting to feel, you know, the strain of playing TFT for too long, and they're wondering what's coming next. So let's go into more Q&A answers directly from the directors, the people responsible for making decisions for the First Descendant. Starting with this first one, they were asking for the upcoming Season 3. It will take time, but, you know, is there going to be more public testing so we can see it before it comes out? And the response is Season 3 is a large-scale update, and this is where they were kind of whispering about potentially doing outdoor battles with Colossus and things like that. So they're preparing more extensive testing than before. We will be revealing information step by step. In the meantime, please look forward to the Season 3 details to be unveiled at PAX East next month, which is, you know, starting in a couple days, if you can believe it. The obligatory question about crafting multiple items at the same time for certain aspects in the research area comes up. This comes up multiple times every Q&A because people just want it so bad. Unfortunately, it is kind of the core gameplay loop design for looter shooters like this, and TFD has no real reason to break that formula. So the question was, can we craft, you know, 5 catalysts at once and 10 energy activators at once? And the response, as always, is at this time there are no plans to allow multiple crystal catalysts to be crafted at once. In Season 3, we are preparing content that will allow you to slightly reduce research time through specific activities. They even mentioned there might be like a new kiosk in town that has its own separate research, which might help with some of the research slots that Anais has. But in general, I wouldn't expect to be able to craft more than 1 catalyst or energy activator or anything like that going forward. There was a question about, will there be adjustments to skill attack modifiers, especially for non-attribute descendants in Void Erosion Purge? We talked about this at the start of the Q&A, but they're working on ways to make skill-based descendants stronger. I take a little bit of issue with the paradigm they're setting here, because I don't know why there needs to be like this huge momentous political push, like lobbyist push, to make skill descendants better, when really what happened is they just implemented a system that made all weapons insanely strong, and then made a mode that heavily discourages skill and heavily encourages weapon. So I feel like a lot of it's kind of like, you know, obviously skill descendants are going to fall behind if you do both of those things back to back with no recourse. So I wouldn't say that it's like skill descendants are bad. Obviously you can run a lot of the best skill descendants and clear all the content in the game except for Void Erosion Purge, where specifically your weapons are buffed and your skills are nerfed. So they say that yes, we do plan to make skill more reasonable. As previously mentioned, the first phase of skill dealer improvements will further enhance their performance in Void Erosion Purge. As part of this, we're also planning additional buffs for descendants without attribute advantage, for example, non-attribute descendants. That's kind of cool. Additionally, it was asked, I forgot to include this, but it was asked, since we're getting dynamic motion, which is the gravitational forces and the laws of physics being applied generously and without prejudice to all forms of mass, even the ones that might be dangling from an organic being. However, there was a question of, will the laws of physics apply to bulbous or round chunks of mass on all characters, or will it just be the female ones? And the response from the director is just female. So it is confirmed every male character in the First Descendant is rock hard, flexing with 2% body fat. There's nothing to jiggle. It is basically like a stone marble statue. The men do not jiggle. They have no, like, it doesn't matter what level of gravity they're in. If they're training Kaioken on 100 times gravity, it doesn't matter. Men don't jiggle, but the women do, with dynamic motion. Another great question. Shout out to the people in the Q&A asking these questions day after day, trying to keep the devs on their toes. Another great question was, you know, changing basic stats or plus or minuses is not going to save some of the descendants that need a lot of help. And what are the plans to help those descendants that feel like they're just kind of forgotten in the formula? The response from Director Jooms was, as you mentioned, we also agree that simple stat adjustments alone are not sufficient to fully express each descendant's individuality and appeal. For Descendants requiring a structural rework, such as Jaber or Eugen, we plan to revamp their functions, roles, and mechanics alongside the release of their ultimate versions, which is essentially what they did for Freyna. Freyna was very much forgotten, very weak, very underperforming, and then when they released Ultimate Freyna, at the same time, they reworked a lot of her base kit and some of her red mods and turned her into an absolute powerhouse all at once. So I would say that was a very successful release for them. Ultimate Freyna was one of their best releases to date, especially since it was kind of like a pre-existing character. It wasn't even a brand new character. So overall, that's kind of, if they can match or get close to that kind of success with reworks while releasing ultimate versions, I think it would go very well for them. Preparations for this direction are already underway and are being aligned with the update schedule, but since it takes time, we'll continue applying stat adjustments in the meantime to ensure they do not fall too far behind with new systems. Next, they've started working on solo dance emotes. It's not really like a huge discussion point, it's just kind of happening. There's a lot of people that are asking for I guess more individual emotes they can use on their own. A lot of the emotes in the game are 2-player, 3-player, or 4-player in a lot of ways, like the high five or the egg or whatever, or like the present. So things that you need someone to interact with in order to show off. And so people are asking for dance emotes that are just varied and different from the ones we have, but also ones that don't require a group, and then it's kind of like a reliable animation you can play on demand. Next up is a question about farming very needed items that are very disparate and spread out like the Dragon Ball. So a great example of this is the blueprints needed for crystallization catalyst and the blueprints needed for energy activation, energy activators, that sort of thing. It's the blueprints you're looking for, because realistically, I think this is a very much a like veteran player problem, because I think a lot of people come in and they have everything they need to farm, so they go out and they farm what they're farming, and they just happen to collect a bunch of catalyst blueprints or energy activated blueprints in the process. However, if you're a veteran player and you've kind of farmed everything already, but you still need more catalysts to continue building things, you end up running a crazy amount of the exact same activity, getting 90% to 85% not what you're looking for. So it's a lot of like wasted time with that in general. Like I currently have like 400 hanged man amorphous that I just chew through every day trying to get more activator blueprints, that sort of thing. So the question was, can we find new farms that are a little bit more reasonable and straight to the point when it comes to getting the materials that we need for very important things like crystallization catalysts? And they respond with, while there are no concrete plans yet, we believe the currently high fragmented farming system, such as farming amorphous materials from various content and opening them, needs improvement to help new players settle in more smoothly. In this context, we're also considering a structure where blueprints can be directly farmed through content like 400%, Sugma, and Void Vessel. However, these ideas are still in early discussion, so something to just kind of put in your mind going forward is they might do it. I think there just needs to be a kind of maybe a little bit more of a streamlined process. They talked about at one point potentially reducing the amount of spawn time at the start of a Colossus, for example. You know, like you load in, it blocks you, a timer starts, then there's a cool animation for the Colossi and they land, then there's a timer and the timer runs out, then the Colossus becomes targetable, then you have to wait for it to end, re-queue again. Even if you're solo matchmaking, you still have to wait a couple seconds or 10 seconds for the matchmaking to pop, then you go back in and all of that. So like when you're farming it over and over and over, it can get cumbersome. So they said they're all looking for ways to help streamline that process, and they've begun that discussion now. Next is kind of a spicy question. People are starting to, as we get more chapters for the characters and Descendants, we're learning backstories. We have Dia connecting with Glay's story. We find Serena and learn about her past, how she doesn't know technology, even though she's only been in there for 100 years, and the technology isn't that much different than it was back then. But in general, people have been like kind of wondering about shipping characters, relationships, slice of life, romance, things like that. So it was asked, Esiemo and Luna together in an episode, please and thank you. And the response from the director was, haha, please stay tuned. So we might be seeing some budding relationships potentially with Esiemo and Luna to start, although there have been references for other characters as well. Another short question is, can we get the re-release of previous seasonal outfits? They're maintaining their stance, but it's good to reiterate here is we're continuing to create new designs for seasonals outfits, so keep in mind and look forward to it, and then they'll ask the team to reconsider the possibility of resales. I have a feeling this is like more some of the like monetization setups are being handily controlled by Papa Nexon, and that the Quantum or the Magnum folks don't really get to decide as much. That's the sense I get, is the monetization is being handled by Nexon team. But they said they'd ask and see if that can come there. But in general, I think you'll just want to expect that, you're going to get new summer outfits every summer. You're going to get new Halloween outfits every Halloween, new Christmas outfits, new spring outfits, new whatever, Lunar New Year outfits. There will just be a new on sale for them. In general, they're not as expensive to make because they do have a very set theme, and they usually do universal ones for it anyway, but just keep that in mind when it comes to seasonal outfits. Next, they were asked about merch. So like hoodies, t-shirts, beanies, and more specifically figurines, figures, and like just desktop items that you can have for the First Descendant. There have been a lot of unofficial ones, people with 3D printers making, Valbies and stuff like that. But there's, been some renewed interest in that. It seems like they are looking at it. As an ex-dev that ended up doing some runs of merch, I can tell you that it's very risky and usually is not very lucrative, even for the biggest games in the world, just because the cost to bring the merch to market and make it available. Generally, the best way to do it is just to do it based on like individual sale, which means you don't take any, you don't store any stock. You just have the store up, and when someone orders a figure or a plushie or something, then it starts getting made when it's commissioned, and then it gets delivered, sometime like 2 months later or something like that. It's the easiest way to do it. That we don't have merch or inventory just sitting around. But I think it was kind of funny when it was asked. A lot of people show interest in having these, and I think that the response in emojis shows the TFD community to a T, right? So from left to right, we have Haley. They want a desktop, like 12-inch size replica of Haley. They want a desktop replica of Serena. They want a desktop replica of Inez. They want a desktop replica of Ultimate Bunny. And lastly, they want a desktop replica of Esiemo. That's TFD, folks. So that's what we got for the Q&A today. We will continue on. This one's actually probably the biggest one they've done so far. A lot of questions, a lot of people curious, and the directors seem to be very in tune here. So we'll just keep up with it as it progresses every day, and then we'll finish once we get all the information out. But yeah, we'll just keep tracking. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people. And don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.